Hello friends, today we are here to discuss about the new tax regime and the old tax regime under the Income Tax Act. We are here to discover that which tax regime would be beneficial for salaried employees. What are the exemptions and deductions under the new tax regimes? And what are the deductions which were there in the old tax regime and which have been discontinued in the new tax regime? So before we proceed ahead, first, let's look at the tax slabs under the new tax regime. There are totally 6 slabs under the new tax regime. If we see here, the tax slabs under the new tax regimes have increased and the tax rate has reduced. Hence, the government has also taken away some exemptions and deductions which were previously applicable under the old tax regime. First of all, let's try to understand what are the deductions which are not allowed under the new tax regime. The first deduction is under section 80 TTA and TTB. That is a maximum of 10,000 rupees, which against the interest which is received from FDRs, SBs, and deposits. This has not been allowed under the new tax regime. Second deduction which is not allowed is the professional tax and entertainment tax, LTA, HRA, child education allowance, helper allowance, special allowances under section 1014, interest on housing loan under self-occupied or vacant property is not allowed. However, if the property is let out, then this particular exemption is allowed. This particular deduction is allowed. Hence, you have to be very careful. If you're paying interest on housing loan, which is a let out property, only then we can claim interest under the new tax regime. Similarly, Chapter 6A deductions, that is all the deductions from 80C, 80D, 80E till 80U have been withdrawn under the new tax regime, except for deduction under section 80 CCD2 and section 80 JJAA. 80 CCD2 is nothing but contribution towards the NPS. Employer's contribution towards NPS. 80 JJAA is not applicable for salaried employees and hence I have not discussed it further. Exemptions or deductions for any other perquisites or allowance, including the food coupons of rupees 50 per meal, subject to 2 meals a day. Generally, the private firms would provide Sodexo coupons to its employees. These coupons and this deduction which is being allowed against these coupons have been withdrawn under the new tax regime. As I told you, employees' contribution to NPS is not allowed. It is only employers' contribution which is allowed under the new tax regime. And donation to political parties, generally this qualifies for deduction under section 80G. This has also been taken out. So let's see what are the deductions and allowances which are eligible for exemptions under the new tax regime. Transport allowance, this is in case of only specially abled persons. Transport allowances which is received to meet conveyance expenditure only for official purposes are allowed. Any compensation received to meet the cost of travel or tour or transport is also allowed. Daily allowances received to meet the ordinary regular charges or expenditure that you incur on account of absence from his regular place of duty. Perquisites, but only for official purposes. Exemptions on account of voluntary retirement, gratuity, and leave encashment is allowed. Interest on home loan only for let out properties, as I had already explained, gives up to rupees 50,000. Deduction under employees' contribution under 80 CCD. This is employers' contribution towards NPS. Deduction under section 80 JJAA, which is not applicable for salaried people, and hence it shall not be further elaborated. Standard deduction of 50,000 is allowed. Deduction under family pension scheme under section 57(2)(a). This is also allowed. And deduction on amount paid or deposited under Agniveer Corpus Fund under section 80 CCH. This has been allowed. So just to understand a pictorial representation of what is allowed and what is not allowed, we see here that income level for rebate under the new tax regime is increased to 7 lakhs and standard deduction of 50,000 makes an effective free salary of 7,50,000. Rebate under section 87A has been increased from 12,500 rupees to 25,000 rupees. Previously, the effective tax-free salary was 5 lakhs, 5.5 lakhs. Now it has increased to 7.5 lakhs. And similarly, rebate under section 87A has also been doubled. However, when we come to other deductions, what the allowable deductions under the new tax regime is interest on housing loan for let out properties, employer's contribution under NPS, deduction of family pension, contribution towards Agniveer scheme, gift up to rupees 50,000, exemption under voluntary retirement exemption under voluntary retirement scheme under section 10 subsection 10C, exemption under gratuity, exemption for leave encashment, daily allowance, conveyance allowance, and transport allowance for specially abled person. These are the only allowable expenditures under the new regime. So if we compare the old regime, the new regime based on the salary levels, we come to the following conclusion. If your salary levels are of 7 lakhs, the new tax regime would be beneficial. Why? Because as already explained here, effective tax salary has been increased from 5.5 lakhs to 7.5 lakhs under the new tax regime. Hence, anyone who has a salary up to 7.5 lakhs, for them, new tax regime would be beneficial. Which tax is beneficial for salary of rupees 10 lakhs? Old tax regime would be beneficial if the tax savings is greater than or equal to 2.63 lakhs. New tax regime would be beneficial if the tax savings is less than 2.63 lakhs. Similarly, if your salary is 12 lakhs, then under the old tax regime, if an tax saving investment of greater than or equal to 3 lakhs is made, then please choose the old tax regime. If the tax investment is less than 3 lakhs, please choose the new tax regime. Similarly, for the salary in the bracket of 15 lakhs, if your tax savings investment is greater than or equal to 3.58 lakhs, then please choose the old tax regime. If your tax savings investment is less than 3.58 lakhs, please choose the new tax regime. Similarly, for the salary levels of 20 lakhs and above, if the tax saving investments is greater than or equal to 3.75 lakhs, then old tax regime is beneficial. Else, new tax regime would be more beneficial to the employee. I hope I was able to clarify the differences between the old tax and new tax regime, and according to salary levels, which tax regime it is beneficial. There is another video which I had made with respect to monthly income of 1 lakh on which nil taxes can be paid if by choosing the old tax regime, and what all are the deductions or exemptions that need to be considered to pay the nil tax return, to file the nil tax returns. The description of the link of the video would be pasted in the description box. Please go through the same and also let me know what are the other areas under the Income Tax Act which requires clarity. Thank you.